I remind you to have a sincere intention in your heart, seeking reward from Allah Ta'ala by attending the lesson. Yesterday, we spoke about the conditions of valid purification. We mentioned among the conditions is for the person to be a Muslim, and we mentioned tamyiz. There's one more condition left for us to mention, and then we will start another topic, inshallah. So also among the conditions of a valid purification is if we are using a small amount of water. Remember yesterday we said that the scholars classified water into small amount and a big amount of water. And they said that small amount of water is that which is less than 2 qillas, and a big amount of water is that which is 2 qillas or more. And if you remember, we said 2 qillas is approximately 191 liters. So if the person is using small amount of water for purification, it is a condition that this small amount of water was not already used to remove a major or a minor ritual impurity. So if the person is using a small amount of water, it's a condition that this small amount of water has not been already used to remove a major or a minor ritual impurity, meaning it was not already used to perform wudu, ablution, or to perform ghusl, the whole body purificatory bath with. Nowadays, for many of us, we have water readily available in our homes. But in the past, the case was not like that. Many people in the past, they used to go out of their house to collect water, maybe take it out from a well and bring it back in. So it was not as easy as it is for many people nowadays. So let's say, for example, a person was performing wudu. And when performing a wudu, he had, for example, a container in which the water that drips down when he is making wudu, the water that is dripping down is being collected in a container. Because this water that is being used when the person is making wudu, the water is clean. So later on, the person might use this water for something else. Okay, I don't know, maybe to clean the floor, for plants, it is clean. But if this water was collected after having been used to make wudu, okay, for example, the person washed his face when making wudu, and this water that dripped from the face after having washed the face, it dripped and it was collected in this container. What is the judgment of this water? This water is referred to as used water now, but it is clean, but not purifying. So it is used water. It is referred to as used water, but one does not use it. But one does not use it for purification again. It is not najis. It is not najis. One used it to make wudu. Okay, there's no najasa on your face. You use this water to make wudu. For example, when the person while making wudu while washing the face, this is the water that dripped and was collected. Or when the person making wudu, washed the hands, and this is the water that dripped after having washed the hands and it was collected in a container. This water is not najis, no, but it is called used water. Yes, it is called used water, and therefore it cannot be used again for purification. One can use it for something else, like I said, cleaning the floor, for example, watering the plants with. Yes, it is not najis. However, because it is used water, one cannot use it again for purification. Okay, why not? Because it was already used to perform wudu. Likewise, if the person, while making ghusl, purificatory bath, the obligatory purificatory bath, okay? If the person, when making the obligatory purificatory bath, the water that one used was collected, it is not najis. But what is the judgment of this water now? It is used. So one cannot reuse or use this water again for purification. One can use it for something else, like I said, for example, clean the floor with, okay? But not for purification again, because this water now is judged as what scholars refer to as used water, ma mustamal, used water. So because this water is a small amount, meaning less than 2 qillas, okay, small amount, and it was already used to perform either wudu, the obligatory wudu with, or it was used to perform the obligatory ghusl with. In this case, one does not use this water for purification again, okay? Now, if the person, when making wudu, does the sunan, the recommended matters. We did not go into details about the recommended matters of ablution. Remember when we spoke about the integrals of ablution, we only spoke about the integrals. And I told you there are recommended matters, but we have not mentioned all of them. But among the recommended matters, the sunan matters of ablution wudu, is to wash the face 3 times. The obligation is once. So if the person washed his face once when making wudu, that is valid. But the sunnah is to wash the face 3 times. So if this person collected the water that dripped from the face, not after the first wash, because the first wash is the integral, the obligation, not after the first wash, but after the second or the third wash, this is now what? The sunnah wash. In this case, this water now that was collected, that dripped from the face and was collected, for example, in a container, this water now does not have the judgment of used water, because this water was not used for the obligatory wudu. It was used for the second or third wash, which is the sunnah wash. Is it clear? So, to sum up what I said now, among the conditions of purification when using a small amount of water, meaning water that is less than 2 qillas, is for this water not to have been already used to lift a major or a minor ritual impurity with, meaning it was not already used to perform the obligatory wudu, nor to perform the obligatory whole body wash, ghusl with, okay? Also, it's a condition that this small amount of water was not used to remove najas filth with, okay? And again, I'm talking about the small amount of water here. So it's also a condition that if the person has a small amount of water to make wudu with, that this small amount of water was not used already to remove najas filth with it. For example, if a person wanted to remove najasa from a table, okay? Let's say there was najasa on the table and the person poured water on the table to remove the najas filth, and this water dripped, okay? This water, this person now does not use it for purification, all right? This is in regards if this water was a small amount of water. So now, inshallah ta'ala, we will talk about another topic, which is tayammum. Tayammum, some people call it dry purification, but let us call it tayammum, all right? Now, what is it and when does the person make tayammum? Scholars say that if the person cannot find water, when we say cannot find water, the scholars specify, meaning the person looked in a particular distance, etc. So there are specific details here, okay? It does not mean that only he cannot find water in his home, but there is water downstairs, for example, that people are selling and for a regular price, and he has the money to afford it. Or there's a river not too far from his house, very close. No, when he cannot find water, bear the details that the scholars mention here, okay? Because, as I said, if there's a river very close to his house where he can access the water, then he goes and takes that water to make wudu with. So if the person cannot find water or is harmed by water, maybe the person does have water, yes, however, it harms him to use water. And when I say here harms him, I'm talking about a major harm. For example, the person fears death or an impairment of a body part or prolonging of the period of the person's illness, for example. In this case, then, the person makes tayammum, even though he has water, because in this case, he is not using water, not because he is not finding it, but rather because it harms him. At the time of our beloved Prophet, والسلام, there were some companions. They were away from the Prophet, والسلام. And one of those men, he had an injury in his head, an open injury to his head. And then he fell asleep. And when he fell asleep, mani came out of him. Okay, so he emitted mani, all right, the sexual spermal fluid of the male. He emitted mani. And then when he woke up and he noticed that he had emitted mani, he wanted to pray. And what did we say does the person do who emitted mani before he prays? He performs the purificatory ghusl, the whole body wash. So, but he had this head injury, all right? And he asked his companions who were with him what to do, even though he had this open head injury. They told him, we see that you need to make the purificatory whole body wash ghusl, despite him having this open head injury. So he did what they told him to. He did that, and then he died. Afterwards, the Prophet ﷺ was notified about this matter. And the Prophet ﷺ was absolutely not happy about this, because he said what means is that they should have asked and not gave a fatwa on their own. It was enough, it would have been enough for this person to make tayammum and not wash the head injury. So instead of washing that, he could have done tayammum instead of washing the injury on his head, because it harmed him. And as a result, he died. So the point here is that they were not supposed to give a fatwa on their own without asking about the judgment first, because there are cases when the person is harmed by water and then the person does not use water. Okay? So then one makes tayammum, as we said, either because the person cannot find water per the details that the scholars mention in regards to the distance that one looks for water, or because water harms the person, okay? When we said harms the person, we gave examples such as, for example, it prolongs the illness of the person, or it causes impairment to a body part, or the person fears death if he uses water. Now, when making tayammum, it is a condition for the tayammum to be valid that it is performed after the prayer time sets in that he wants to pray. So let's say this person wants to pray the dhuhr prayer. When does he make tayammum? He makes tayammum after the dhuhr prayer starts, not before, okay? So it's not like in wudu. For example, in wudu, the person can make wudu before the prayer time sets in if he is not among the ones who has to wait until the prayer time sets in. Whereas in tayammum, one performs tayammum for the prayer that one wants to pray after this prayer time has already set in. Okay, so then one waits until the prayer time sets in, and then one performs tayammum. And also, it is a condition for the validity of the tayammum to be performed after non-exempted najas filth has been removed. This is, of course, in the case that the person has water to remove the non-exempted najas filth from one's body. Okay? Then one performs tayammum. Now, how does one perform tayammum? Tayammum is performed by wiping one's face, hands, forearms, including the elbows as well, with dust of unmixed, purifying, dusty soil. So, for tayammum, what are the body parts that are going to be wiped? Notice we mentioned the face, hand, forearms, and elbows. That is it. Okay, so it's not like when performing wudu, we also need to wet wipe on the head and we also need to wash the feet. No. When performing tayammum, one wipes one's face, hands, forearms, including the elbows, with the dust of unmixed, purifying, and dusty soil. Okay? So when we say unmixed, it means, for example, it was not mixed with ashes. And it is soil that has dust. So one does not use, according to Imam al-Shafi'i, rock, for example. Also, this soil needs to be purifying. Okay, one does not use filthy najas soil for tayammum. And tayammum must be performed in the aforementioned order that I just stated. Okay, that means the face first and then the hands with the forearms and the elbows. So one has to observe this order. Now, the minimum requirement for tayammum is that it is done and performed in 2 strikes, okay? That the person does it minimum by striking the soil twice. One can strike more, but the minimum are 2 strikes. And of course, one has to have a valid intention. When performing tayammum, what is the intention here? Not to make tayammum. The person does not intend to make tayammum. No, one intends to make permissible the performance of the obligatory prayer. He wants to pray. He's making tayammum to pray. So his intention in the heart is then that he wants to make permissible to perform the obligatory prayer. To make permissible to perform the obligatory prayer. This is the intention one has in the heart. Now, when does one have the intention in the heart when making tayammum? Let's say, for example, one has dusty soil in front of him. One strikes, for example, with the hands on the dusty soil. When one strikes, one has the intention and keeps the intention. So one has the intention when the hands are on the dusty soil, and one keeps the intention while transferring the dust of the soil to the first part of the face that he's wiping. Okay, so he keeps the intention while transferring the dust from the soil. He keeps the intention in his heart until he has wiped the first part of his face. Okay, and then he is wiping his whole face. Okay, and then he can do the second strike here and wipe his hands, forearms, and the elbows with that second strike. Remember, one can do more than 2 strikes, but the minimum are 2 strikes. Okay? And Allah Ta'ala knows best. The scholars say that if he cannot find water and cannot find dusty soil for tayammum, he still prays. Okay? He still prays without doing either. But later on, when one has water, the scholar said he makes up this prayer then. Okay? But he does not leave out this prayer. All right? May Allah Ta'ala bless you. We'll continue tomorrow, inshallah, with also a very important topic. You're very welcome. Assalamu alaikum.